shadows. Now, I completely forgot. I was actually supposed to record this yesterday, but it completely slipped my mind, so apologies on that. We're going to get onto it right now. So, as you guys know, Big Rock has released, and I don't know, some of you guys might be still wondering whether or not if it's worth pulling. I know some people are playing the long game and waiting on KAISEL to release next update. In October, basically, when Geno drops, of course. And if it still stands that KAISEL is going to be supporting defense penetration, then yeah, we'll see how that plays out, of course. Unless they change it. For what? I don't know. Maybe what if they make KAISEL ultimate, buffing up ultimate attacks? Or like the damage output? That would be interesting. But for the most part, yeah, people are playing it smart, waiting for KAISEL, and then because of course after KAISEL there's no shadow, so it gives you that break. But obviously, as you guys can see with Big Rock, I have managed to get him to double digits, 10%. I'm not going to go to 11%. I'm content with 10%. Save my traces. And so I've been doing some testing. Now, what I've done is I went on floor 42, which I've recorded gameplay for that, and I went on floor 25, which I thought I recorded, but I didn't. So rest in peace on that one. But I recorded floor 42 run, so there's that. And I went onto the floor and I did runs with Big Rock as my shadow, Serbi as my shadow, and Igris as my shadow. Now the reason why I decided to kind of compare these three is because, well, in an overall look, these three are going to be more of the favored shadows, right? And so that's kind of why I went with Igris, Serbi, and Big Rock. Now the calculations and the readings that I'm going to go off from is floor 25, since that was the last testing I'd done, so that's kind of fresh on my mind. I'm going to use Harper, because I was using Harper, I was using Charlotte, and I was using Mia, because of course those characters do effectively make good use of their basic skills on their kits, of course. So those are the characters that I was using, of course. Now, one thing which I do want to quickly mention before we dive on in, when it comes to your authorities, when it comes to the passive skills, because some people are still confused on it, as long as the Shadow's passive that you want active is in the first slot, you will make good use of their passive. You don't have to have them summoned on the field to be like, oh, now their core attack damage increase of 35% is active. No. As long as they're in the first slot, this is active forever, throughout the fight. Alright, I just want to clarify that. And then when it comes to these other shadows, of course, if they've got these additional stats, this will also be active when you summon them and they actually start fighting. It's just their main passive won't be active. The only shadow that's in the number 1 slot will have their main passive active. Alright, getting all of that out the way. So, I understand that KAISEL is on everyone's mind. I know that some people are considering saving up until KAISEL releases to then decide on what to do. Because of course after KAISEL there is a break in shadows. Now, obviously, I went ahead and obviously just decided to get Big Rock, get him to the 10% mark. Now, I will say the value for Big Rock is slightly lesser than all the others, purely because there's no additional to Big Rock in terms of any debuffs or buffs to be gained. It's so plain. His kit is extremely plain that you're really only using him for the basic skill damage increase. So it does decrease his value in there, but because of it's the basic skill damage as the main passive, it upholds its value in terms of it supporting Harper, Charlotte, Cheyenne, Amamiya, Beast, you know, all sorts of characters. Majority of the characters that we have lined up, of course. So there's that value to be gained. Now, as I've said, Big Rock, Igris, and Sharpie. Sharpie? Who's Sharpie? Bigris. Bigris. What am I saying? Big Rock, Serbi, and Igris. Those are the shadows that I use to compare damage output. Now, I'm going to use my floor 25 readings with Harper because that's fresh on my mind on how things went. Obviously, with the gameplay, it's on floor 42, and so the damage mark is going to be around about the 1 to 2 mil region, of course, because the enemy does have a little bit of defense going on there, but that's fine, that's fine. So, just to kind of break it down, Serbi, let's talk about Serbi first thing first. Completely juiced up, 7% crit damage, of course. Harper on floor 25, I was averaging in between 4.3 to 4.5 million damage from the second skill. So I'll do this first skill, I'll paralyze, and then I'll lead into the second skill. And the second skill, because it's doing a great amount of damage, yeah, that's the amount that I would be gaining from Serbi, which obviously makes it so that Serbi is last in line in terms of full-on damage output. Now you have to keep in mind that with this specific passive, along with Igris, of course, it does affect the whole kit, not just two specific skills. So there's that value to be gained. Now with Serbi, I'm just going to throw this out there, and I've said it before, this shadow is a really good second, third shadow, purely because in the slots, by the way, purely because of the combustion. So if you want to unlock Serbi and then buff him up one time, so that way you can get the combustion debuff, at that moment I would highly recommend just keep Serbi on the second or third slot, so you can make good use of that debuff, and it doesn't require a high amount of investment of your shadow tracers. So I just want to give Serbi some credit there, even though he's kind of lowballing us with that 7% crit damage, of course. So it's not really worth going all the way, but it is worth to get the combustion debuff to gain those extra bit of damage, having a support shadow at the ready on the second and third slot. Now, with that out the way, and knowing that Serbi was providing us with the least amount of damage compared to the other two, this is where things get a little bit interesting, because the consistency between Big Rock and Igris, they were kind of even. That being said, Big Rock was at times with the high rolls hitting around the 5.5 million region. So Igris on average was doing around about 4.8 to 5.1 million, right? Basic skill 1 into the paralyzed, then the basic skill 2. Basic skill 2 where it was doing the highest reading, of course. So that was Igris. Big Rock, on the other hand, was again doing around about the 5.8 mil to the 4.8 mil to 5.1 mil region. Again, it was very similar to Igris, of course, but it was high rolling at 5.5. So there were times where I was doing that little bit more. Now, between the two, you've got to keep in mind with Igris, it affects the whole kit, whereas Big Rock, it's only 2 skills that are being affected with the damage output. More to be gained if you can get lucky with the high rolls, of course, but it's only two skills being affected, of course. So with all things considered, I will say Big Rock is a pretty good shadow. A very, very good shadow, I will say, in terms of helping out especially hunters that can really feed off from their basic skill damage. Like I said, with the characters that I've mentioned previously, there's a lot of value to be gained from Big Rock. So if you want to unlock Big Rock for the case of getting him to the 10% region state, so that way you hit that double digit, you can do so. I don't think it'll be worth the complete investment, but there is value to be gained with Big Rock as a main passive user. I wouldn't really suggest having or using Big Rock as a sub shadow in the third and second slot. I just don't see the value in that, just because there's nothing more to be gained. He is most definitely a main passive user. It's a real tough one with comparing everything together, of course, but I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, Big Rock is pushing for that little bit more. I mean, you also have to take into consideration with the kit yourself. Again, with my testing, I kept all the kits the same. I didn't bother changing the kits. So yeah, I mean, and I think another thing to take into consideration is what stats you're looking at. Like if your crit rate and crit damage is pretty good in terms of going plus 50%, and then let's say 180 to 190% on the crit damage, of course, then yeah, I'd say at that point you just throw in Big Rock and then maximize your damage output. Get by getting the additional 3 to 400k damage, you know. So yeah, that might be the wave. But yeah, Big Rock is not bad. At points will do high roll and do more damage compared to the others, but is it worth getting Big Rock? I feel like for Big Rock, like team attack situations, you might find value out of it. So like POD, what else? Chaos, yeah, anything like that, you might, because I mean at that point you really want the consistency of your basic skill damage to max out and do a lot of damage, right? And then if your kit is well enough, then of course that will then follow through to support the rest, being basic attacks, core and ult. So yeah, there is value to be gained from Big Rock. So I would say it is worth. Go for the double digit 10%. Keep it as the main passive. Never use it as a sub shadow, and that's kind of what we're going to be rocking with. Obviously, with that all being said, if you want to just wait it out and see what KAISEL is going to bring to the table, because I don't know if they're going to commit to the defense pen stat for him. But if they do, then yeah, I think at that point it might still be worth to invest a little bit more into Big Rock. At least get to the 10% mark, I will say.